Hi everyone, hope this video finds everybody healthy and happy. Today we are going to can hamburger, ground hamburger. So let's get started. So in today's video, since we're doing ground hamburger, we're going to be pressure canning it. It's better to fry up your hamburger first. Now, in yesterday's video, when I did the raw chicken breast, we just canned the raw chicken. Well, it doesn't seem to clog up, as for, I don't know a better word to use. But when you use hamburger and you can it, if you would have it all just shoved in a jar, that's what you would get. You would get just a glob of meat in that jar once it's cooked, if you're canning it raw, which a lot of people do, and I'm not judging anybody, but I don't want to take the chance on any of the meat, let's see here, going bad once it's canned in the jar. So that's why I am going to fry it up. And today, instead of quart jars, I'm going to be canning in pint jars. So let's get this done. Alright, so we are going to fry up this hamburger. My husband bought out, we always go out to the meat market. It's an Amish-owned business. And I got my fan on. I hope it's not going to cause too much noise, but it's hot in here today. But anyway, he bought up all of the hamburger meat that was fresh. And it was not quite 5 pounds. So I'm going to get this all fried up. You can go ahead and season it with whatever you like, even if you like little onion flakes or whatever. You can use all of that. I think I'm just going to do salt with it today. Alright, I wanted to answer just a couple questions that people had on the chicken video. People were wondering, why would you need to can meat? And one of the things that I like about it is that I've always got something ready. If you're not feeling well, or if you have company come over or whatever, you have pretty much everything at your disposal to use quickly. The chicken is good for any type of casserole, for basically anything with chicken in it, other than if you want a big piece of chicken breast, because it does, it's cut up in pieces, not in great big slices. And with the beef, it will be wonderful for spaghetti sauces, for tacos, things like that. And it's already cooked. You'll just have to heat it up and put your seasonings in with it. So that makes it a great thing. And probably the number one reason is if something would happen and we would lose electricity for whatever amount of time, your freezer would be off, and a lot of times the meat goes bad before the electricity gets back on. This way, you won't have to worry about it. You're not going to be wasting all of that meat, and you'll have it right at your hand if you need it during that time. So yeah, a lot of good reasons to can it, and I hope that you guys just give it a try. If you have, now getting started is not cheap. Make sure that you check out garage sales and flea markets and thrift stores, anywhere that you can find maybe some jars, and you can buy the lids brand new. Those need to be new, but the jars and the bands, you can use old ones. So it's a little bit of an expense getting started, but in the long run, after so many years of doing it, it saves you a ton. Alright, the hamburger is done. So what we're going to do now, as I said, I've already washed, and I have poured boiling water after I washed and rinsed these with soap and water real well. Poured boiling water all over them, even though if you're cooking and canning meat, it's especially the pints are going to be in your pressure canner for 75 minutes. If you have a quart, it's going to be in there for 90 minutes. So when you're doing any type of meat and pressure canning it, you don't have to really worry about sterilizing because they're going to be in the canner under such high pressure for so long that you're not going to have to worry about it. But when you do any type of vegetable like green beans and stuff, yes, you do have to sterilize everything. And the best way to do that is after you scrub the jars and everything, you're gonna pour boiling water in your sink and fill each of them up. This is what I do now. Or if you're lucky and you have a dishwasher, our old one that we had where we lived at before had a sterilizing button on there. After that, you want to put your oven on around 200 degrees. Set the jars on a cookie sheet and put them in your oven until you're ready to use them. But like I said, since we're doing hamburger today, we don't have to sterilize them. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm doing pint jars. In a pint jar, I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of canning salt. If you don't have canning salt, you can use other salt. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to use my pink Himalayan salt today. So let's get started putting in a half a teaspoon in each of the jars. And like I said before, you can also put in, if you want, you know, onions or something like that, the dried onions. Now I'm not sure how many I'm going to actually have, so I'm only going to put about that much salt in there. I don't want to waste it. And put these over here. I have just a small funnel that I'm going to be using today. Let's put it in this one so you can see it better. I've got the hamburger back here on the stove and it's all done. And let me get me a spoon here. And thankfully the stove is right here behind the camera. Alright, see, we've got it all cooked. We are going to fill it up and leave 1 inch of headspace, which we can just fill it up to right here. And then we'll have this much headspace left. The reason that I like to use the funnel, you don't have to have one of those, but the reason that I like it, it keeps the rims clean on your jar. Even though we're going to wipe those off with vinegar to make sure that there's no oil or anything that's going to stop the sealing process, it's still better, I think, to have a little funnel. So let me show you. Got the hamburger in there. Now we're going to add water. This is, I love this electric teapot. It makes it, you can put in hot water and it's so much easier just to pour it in there. So what we're going to do is we just poured our water up to the rim here, okay? Going to take our paper towel, dip it in the vinegar, wipe off the rim, and then I've got this little magic gadget. It's a little magnet. It's perfect. So what I did is I've already washed these lids well and put them in hot water. Now to get them apart without burning your fingers. Okay, just gonna place that on there and put a band on it, and we're only going to tighten this finger tight, and that is it right there. So we filled up with hamburger that was already cooked. I have a half a teaspoon of salt in there, and then I put in hot water up to the rim, and then these are all going to go in the canner. I'll go ahead and finish these. an All-American pressure canner, and the number on this one is 921. Now they are expensive compared to some of the other canners, but this thing is heavy duty. I have had this one for over 5 years and have used it in the winter, summer, fall. I can a lot of different things all the time, and I would suggest, if at all possible, to try to get you an All-American canner. You don't have to worry about, let me show you here. You don't have to worry about bands or anything going bad. It doesn't have no rubber around the bands of them. And let's get started putting it in, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it, okay? So I only ended up getting 6 jars. So what we're going to do is, because I have well water and it's very hard water, I have to add some vinegar. And the reason that I do that is to keep the hard water depositing a white powdery substance on the lids and the jars once they've canned. And then we're going to add water. I went ahead and got hot water from my electric teapot. And then we have one of these down in the water that the jars are going to sit on. And this one, if I had enough beef, I could have made 2 levels of the pint-sized jars. But I ran out, so we're just going to do with what we have. So we're going to place those in there, you know, pretty even if you can, since it's not going to be able to fill it all the way up on the bottom there. And we'll save this one to go in the middle. And I think I'm going to put a little bit more water in it. Okay. Because meat has to process for such a long amount of time, you want enough water in your canner that it will not go dry. That would be very, very dangerous for you, and also you would end up losing all of your jars. So make sure that you've got probably at least 2.5 inches of water up on your jar, and that should do it. Now I've got my stove set right now on high, and this is starting to get a little warm. And the reason that I do that, I've used this stove and this canner together for all these years, and I know exactly what temperature I need it set on to make everything work out, you know, perfect. So you pay attention to what your stove temperature does, and also the first few times that you try pressure canning, stay in the kitchen, stay close to the canner so you can keep an eye on all the gauges, and I'll explain all that here in a little bit. Let's get the lid on. Alright, so with our All-American canner, there is a groove right here, and you want that facing the front of your stove, okay? Let me reach across here. And also you want to make sure that your gauge, let's see, where's the camera? There we go. It's on 0, and this little vent spout, you want to make sure that it is clear. So take a look at it toward the light, and I can see it, so it's going to be put on. There's an arrow on the lid. We're going to place it with this notch here. And then, once it's seated in there good, you're going to turn it so this latches underneath here. And then, we're going to start putting the tighteners on here. Just put them just enough to hold it up here until you make sure that it's level all the way around, and then we'll tighten them up. Alright, so we're going to look here and over here. Looks pretty level. So let's start tightening. And they can be tight. Okay. Now I noticed that my gauge is just a little bit off. So I'm going to have, I'll check that. It's on the second notch. So I'll check out with All-American canner and see what I can do about that. How I can get it back down to 0. But until I figure that out, I'll keep an eye on it while it's up at the top of the gauge. Alright, so Now it's heating up in there. The water was just starting to boil when I put the lid on. When this starts venting, and you can kind of feel it when it starts up here. Let me show you. Alright, see how the vent is starting to already vent out? And you can feel the steam. Just be careful because you will get burned. Alright, once this starts really venting steam out of there, we will set a timer for 10 minutes. And we're going to let that do that for 10 minutes. I'll be back when it starts. You see the steam coming out of there? Up by the chicken? Alright, set the timer for 10 minutes. Alright, it's been almost 10 minutes since the steam started coming. There it is. There's the timer. 10 minutes exactly. Let me turn that off. Steve went online and checked about our gauge here. If it's over 2 pounds off, which ours is 2 pounds off, we have to replace that. So he's going to check and see how much the cost of that is. But for today, it's going to be fine. I'll just keep an eye on everything. And we're doing the meat, and it's going to be in there for a long time, so I'm sure it's going to be all right. So let's get the gauge put on, the heavy gauge. All right, I live in Ohio, and because of our altitude, I have to put it on the 15 down there. Now, make sure you check exactly what your altitude is. I know a lot of videos out there, everyone was at 10 pounds of pressure, and I'm at 15, so let's stick this on. Okay, and be careful because that can be hot. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we are going to wait until this starts jiggling. And once that starts jiggling, and you'll hear it, I'll let you hear it, then we're going to start timing this for 75 minutes for pints and 90 minutes for quarts. So I'm going to turn down the heat now. My level needs to be on 6, and I've done this enough to know that that's where I need to be for my canner. And then I'll keep an eye on this gauge, and I'll know that I can go, it's going to point straight up for 15 pounds of pressure, and I know that I can go 2 above that without anything, being worrisome about it. Alright, be back. Alright, with shipping for this gauge, it is $23. So Steve's going to go ahead and order me one today because I've got a lot of canning to do with this garden, getting ready. I'm going to do salsa and tomato. Oh, I'm not sure exactly all of what we're going to do. Stick around. Come back. I'm sure there'll be something that you'll enjoy. Hey, I wanted to also just jump on for a second and let everybody know that our first-time canners is don't be in a hurry. Just take your time. Everything that you do in the canning process has to be done in exactly a certain order. They just, relax. A lot of people say they're nervous and they are afraid of a canner. Actually, if you do everything by the book, unless there's you've got a faulty canner or something, everything should be just fine. So just enjoy it. Make it a day, like I said, where it's just you in the kitchen, and you're going to just be, most of the day I'll be spending right here. Right now, I've got me a Diet Pepsi, and I just turned the fan off so I could do this little video part right here, but I've got the fan sitting here, and I am sitting in a kitchen chair, well, not too far from the stove, so that I can see the gauge. And I also wanted to say, if you're looking for a pressure canner, do not get a pressure cooker. Those are 2 totally different things. So I just wanted to bring that up. Make sure that you are purchasing and looking for a pressure canner. Okay. You hear the little gadget over there? And our pressure is up a little bit above the 15 mark. That is perfect. That's where we want it to be at. So I'm not going to touch the heat on mine. It's taken a while to get here, and that's why I was saying don't get in a big hurry. It takes a while to get everything going. Okay, so I'm going to set the timer now for 75 minutes for the pint-sized jars. All right, so it is cooled down. The gauge is on 0. It's stopped making the noise, so we're going to take off this weighted gauge and start opening it up. And it's still really warm. Now that one wasn't even tight. Did you see that just come off? Okay, so what we're going to do is turn it so that this is no longer hooked up under here. And when we lift it, we're going to lift it up away from our faces. See the steam? That steam can burn you. All right, let's see how they look. Oh, look at that. How's that showing up on camera? Let me get out of the way. Oh yeah, that looks good. Now this hamburger is from the Amish place, and it's really, really good. There's hardly no fat in it. Turned out really pretty. All right, everyone, I really appreciate you taking the time and watching me today. I hope that there was something that you learned along the way. And if you have any questions, leave them below. And if you haven't subscribed, would you please do so? If you like my channel, subscribe or check me out a while. We've got all kinds of videos that you can watch. Sorry about my dog barking. So have a great evening, everybody, and talk to you real soon.